Hello, we're live. There we go. A little loop on the video intro there. Um, Welcome to Ask Wildman. My name is Miles Bassett with Wildman Web Solutions. This is an open Q&A provided by Wildman Web Solutions. We're here to answer your questions. So we live stream here every week live on our Facebook, YouTube, and now our LinkedIn channel. So pick your social media preference there and jump in every week to watch us here. We're here to answer your questions about technology, marketing, running a small business, or if you just want to jump in and say hi. So please, if you have any questions about anything here, throw those questions in the comments below. We will be watching and addressing those as they come up. If you're not watching this live, you're catching this later, you can also participate in the conversation by sending your questions to askwildman@wildmanweb.com. I have that email address scrolling below me here. Again, just email us your questions and we'll either email you back there or we'll just use your question for next week's show. We do this to put out good information and resources for our clients, for our business community, and for anyone else out there that wants to participate. So if you think we're providing some good information here, if you like what we're doing here, please like, share, get us out in front of more people so we can answer more questions and provide more value. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my partner here to help me with those answers. Mike, you ready? Here we go.
Ready. I am somewhat ready, Miles. Yes. Sorry, I'm just finishing up an email to a prospective client, actually. Now you have my attention. Hello, Miles. How the heck are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Always be selling, I guess, right?
ABC. That is right. That is right. Never stops. Never stops.
Awesome. Well, again, we are Wildman Web Solutions. My partner, Mike, and I here are the principals at that agency. So we primarily work with small and medium-sized businesses, getting them online. We do lots of websites, mobile apps, social media, advertising, all that kind of stuff. And we found that it is a very complicated landscape. So we started doing this live stream again to get that information out there and answer your questions en masse rather than just one-on-one. So again, if you think this is valuable, please give us a like, share, get us out in front of your networks. We want to answer as many questions as possible and get as much good, valuable information out there as possible. It's never more important, or it's never been more important for small businesses and businesses of all sizes to be online, to be maximally leveraging their technology and their online presence. And that's what we do all day, every day here. So it's our job to be down in the trenches, figure out the new tools, what works, what doesn't, and get those questions answered for you so you can focus on what you do best, whether that's selling insurance or making pizza or fixing cars. You can focus on what your business does best, and we can hopefully help you with the rest there. So I know we had a couple of questions that had come in recently. We had a few topics we want to talk about today. We'll try to keep it relatively short. We don't want to take up too much of your time. But in the meantime, if you have anything you want to comment on, you want to expand with your own experiences, or if you have some more specific questions, please throw those in the comments below and we'll address those as they come up. All right, with that being said, Mike, I'm just going to throw it over to you. I think you had a topic of discussion you wanted to hit.
Yeah, sounds good, Miles. Yeah, actually, a couple different topics. They're somewhat related, and they both come from questions of clients here in the past week that we had. So I thought that'd be good just to bring up today and go through. And I want to hear your reaction after I tell you what it is, because I'm leading you down a blind hallway at the moment. But the first one is a really general question. And it's one that probably a lot of people are thinking, and they don't want to ask us. And I don't know if we have ever actually gotten this question on the show before, but it was in a more roundabout way. This is the question that we got the other day: was when do we hire an agency? That's not exactly what the person said to me, but that was basically what they were saying. And it's a really great question. And obviously we're a little biased being an agency, but I also think we have a unique perspective on answering this question. And so I'm going to go, really broad with this answer. And to me, it's really, really binary. And there's a line in the sand in every single business where you can't do it anymore and you need help. And that's for anything, right? I mean, that's for the person answering the phone to the person taking care of your customers, et cetera, to the person that's shipping out products, whoever that is. When we're a really, really small business, a lot of times the business owners are doing it themselves until they can farm that out. And it's the same thing with everything that has to do online. And in the intro, even though I was sending an email, I was listening to your intro, Miles, and you hit this point splendidly on the head, that it's never been more important to have a great online presence. It's never been more important to leverage that online presence. It's no longer a debate, right? And I'm old enough to remember when it was a debate. I'm old enough to remember when people thought Facebook was a fad, and they literally told me that when I was telling them, no, you need to get your business online. And they were like, you're crazy. This is going to be blown over in 18 months.
Well, makes a joke there, but that really wasn't all that long ago.
That wasn't a joke.
We're making this kind of an argument. I think we forget how quickly this stuff really rolls along.
Right. And so my main point is, that debate is long gone. You have to be doing stuff online. And by that, I mean creating content. You have to be creating multiple pieces of content every single week, every single day if you can. But at least multiple pieces of content every single week. And so to me, knowing that, it's really simple. Can I fulfill that in-house with the team that I currently have in place, or me, myself, and I doing it? Or do I need to farm that out to somebody else? And I'm not even going to get into the subjective side of it of who can do it better, a team in-house or an outside marketing agency. I'm going to keep this completely binary and objective of, if you can do it in-house, great, do it. If you can't, farm it out. The point is, it has to get done. It's not a maybe. It's not an option. It's not a nice to have. It's not, well, we'll get to that next week. No, it's this has to be happening. And
so we're removing it from the realm of if and into the realm of how.
Right. And at that point, it's just a very simple binary question of, can I do this myself, or do I need help? And if you need help, call an agency. That's what they're trained to do. There's some people who would be in the camp of saying that I'm never going to do it because that's not what I do. I'm not a professional. I'm going to leave the professional services to the people that do that profession. There's people who will never change their own oil, or whatever. They're going to take it to the car mechanic. Could they change their own oil? Sure. They could watch a YouTube video and figure it out. I feel the same way about, things online. It's like, could you build a website? Sure. Could you do your own marketing? Sure. Should most people be doing those things themselves? Absolutely not, because they're terrible at it, but they're a great plumber, they're a great doctor, they're a great insurance agent, whatever it is, and that's what they should be spending their time on. But that's not a hard and fast rule, and there are great businesses out there, very small businesses, even solo entrepreneurs who do a good job, with their own marketing and building their website, et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, that's not what most of them do, because that's not what they spend their time practicing. And so to me, it's really, really binary. Do it yourself if you can and you have the ability. If not, get an agency as quickly as possible so that you don't have a lag time in building your brand online, building your company online, creating audiences and getting your message out to those audiences through all the various ways. That's not just social media. We're talking about SEO and SEM and, your website content, your blog, your newsletter, all of those things, which leads me into my second point here that came about out of this conversation. And that is that, we no longer have the luxury to only be in one place at one time. And I'm not just speaking about that from a marketing advertising perspective. I'm including that, but also your sales channels. And this came about from a conversation with a retailer who was not selling online. And they thought, they thought they were selling online, but through Instagram. That's not an online sales strategy. That's not an e-commerce strategy by itself. That is a part of one, but it's this was a debate. in the not so distant future. In my mind, it's not a debate anymore. And that you have to be omni-channel, not only in talking to your clients and your audience and your prospective customers, but also in how you sell your products and services. And that goes for the other way around too. Retail's not dead. Retail is not dead. Physical retail is, it's obviously bounced back from the pandemic, but it's still a very relative thing. And so there were people who took it too far the other way, and they have no physical presence anywhere. And I think that's a mistake too. But this specific mistake about Instagram, the point is that don't build your house on rented land. And Instagram can change everything tomorrow. And if that is the only place that you've trained your customer to buy something online, you're going to be hurting. So it was a really, really broad, answers to those questions. But Miles, I want to get your take first on what do you think about, is it more black and white than what I laid it out? Because you feel free to disagree with me in terms of do you need an agency or not? And then what do you think about this idea that I can't just be on one or two channels anymore, that ship has sailed. I need to be as omni-channel as possible.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to broadly agree, of course. I don't think that you're completely wrong there. I will push back a little bit on both points, though. The first being, we work primarily with very small businesses and people who are wanting to take things in-house, and they don't have infinite resources to put out there to hire people or to shop stuff out. And so I think there is a place for maybe some things that you do well. This is nice in that it can save you some time and money. It also will probably make whoever you're working with more effective. So say you do hire out an agency, you're going to be more effective working with them if you play your part and you make your contributions where you can. This is somewhat difficult in that you have to know your strengths and know your weaknesses. I'm actually thinking back to this morning. We had a very nice presentation at Lawrence 1 Million Cups. Shout out to that organization, an entrepreneurial support organization by the Kauffman Foundation. Find us every Wednesday morning here in Lawrence at Peasley Tech, their new Crunch Center, to hear from a new entrepreneur. We had a presentation this morning from a guy who was just starting his business. He kind of just came out of the idea stage and was starting to do some execution, rolling some stuff out there. And as part of his presentation, he said, look, I know my weaknesses. I know I need to be putting this content out there. I'm a good writer. I've got good ideas. I've got a good system here. I don't know how to make it look good. And so he knew he needed to farm that out and was asking the group, like, hey, who should I be talking to get this out on social, to get this material published in a way that it looks visually professional and really supports the brand that I'm trying to develop. That, I think, was a really smart way of looking at this in a maybe less than black and white fashion, and that he knew his skills. He knew he's a good writer, but he didn't necessarily have the confidence in making things visually beautiful. And that's where he needed to shop it out and get a little bit of help from another professional, from an agency, a freelancer, someone he could find to bring in there and get his already very high quality content that he's producing and put it out in a way that supported his brand and got it in front of the most people in the most effective way possible. So that's where small businesses, I think, can be smart about this and make, get more bang for their buck, maybe save a little bit of money. If there's something that you are good at and you know that you can do in-house, really lean into that and do that well. And the rest of it, make sure to lean on your community, find some other resources. And if you find a professional that's good at that, then work with them in order to fill in those weak spots. It's hard that you have to acknowledge your own weaknesses, but it's an absolute must when it comes to making really high quality content, getting this done professionally on a budget. Now, if you're in a place where you can just hire an agency and have them do it all professionally, wonderful. Try to work with them and give them as much feedback as possible. I know that makes our job easy, but if you really are very small and you're just crossing over into that question of, do I need to hire an agency? Then maybe the answer is yes. In some places, maybe you need some augmentation rather than a total replacement or a total farm out. So
that's a great point, Miles. Let me just tack on one thing to that. And there are some people that are so small that they couldn't even afford right? Because they're just starting out, whatever it is, they couldn't even afford to farm out that small piece.
Yeah.
And so, you're hitting on a very important point here that we talk about a lot, and that is the key of self-awareness. And, whether or not content is good is a little bit, subjective, but in the end, is it getting results, right? I mean, that's how we can kind of, have a scorecard of how we're doing. But if in this example of this guy from this morning, if he said, okay, I'm only good at writing, I'm not good at graphics, I can't afford to hire a graphics person, then the answer is, to me, again, it's still a black and white yes or no. But at that point, it's a no. Okay, well, what do I do? I have to lean into my strengths, and you forget about the graphic, and you don't have nice graphics, and you have to make that writing really, really work for you, and carry the load. But again, there's no, I'm just not going to write anything,
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes people get trapped into that default where if they don't think it's perfect and they can't afford to hire somebody to help them, then they just don't do anything. And that's the worst possible thing that you can do for your business. Even if you can't afford to hire somebody to, write a blog for you or something like that, or you have a blog and, you can't afford it and keep it going, the blog still needs to happen. It's just you're going to have to sit down and write it, or if you say, I'm not a writer, but I'm a really great talker, okay, then the blog goes away and now you're doing a podcast. But, it's still just yes or no. Can I do it or do I need help? But excellent point.
Overall,
Excellent point there about self-awareness. Yeah.
We're taking this again out of the realm of, if I should be doing this and more into how am I going to do this? Because it is a must. How are you going to pull this off? What can you do internally and what do you need to outsource? What can you maybe do to work smarter and leverage those strengths that you have so that you have more resources to put into, filling in the gaps there with some professionals. And hopefully growing into the point where you can bring more and more people on board or find a good agency that can help you across the board so that you can, again, focus on what it is that you actually want to do, which is probably not create content for Instagram or whatever it happens to be your strategy is. And so that's where I want to jump tracks into your other point, that is the omni-channel point. I think broadly you were correct, but omni-channel, to me, that says like all of them. I need to be on everything across the board, all of the social media platforms, all of the e-commerce options, all of the everything out there. And that to a lot of people becomes very overwhelming. And so instead, I want to look at this as maybe a point towards diversification. Instead of just being on everything, you don't have to go out and be on absolutely everything. Don't jump on the newest social media bandwagon just because it's there and burn all of your time and effort and sanity and potentially money if you are farming this out or hiring someone just to get on some new thing because it's there. But rather what Mike was talking about with, say, you're selling on Instagram. What if something on Instagram changes? You've built up your entire e-commerce platform on rented land, that is on an online platform that you don't control. So number one there is putting at least a majority of the eggs in a basket that you actually own, that you control. So that would be, say, putting an e-commerce platform on your own website instead of on a social media platform or a third-party marketplace or something like that. And then secondarily, diversifying your efforts. So you're not just putting everything onto Instagram for them to change their rules tomorrow. You have a couple of different plays out there so that if something goes down, if something goes wrong, if something changes, you're not completely out of the game. You have some other supports out there to pivot and lean on. Whatever efforts you were, say, pushing towards Instagram, you can then kind of pull those off and shift things around. You're not down and out. But you have that. It's just like investing. Everyone recommends, or I guess the smart financial investors would tell you to diversify your investments, put in a bunch of different kinds of have a very diversified portfolio, so that if something happens in one particular company or one particular industry, your entire portfolio isn't tanked just because Apple did something crazy and tanked tomorrow or something. It's the same way with your own internal efforts, your marketing efforts, your social media efforts within your company. Try to diversify a little bit, have a couple of different plays out there so that you can shift and pivot and adjust with the reality of the situation. And we joked at the beginning of this that, not too long ago, people were arguing that having an online presence at all was a maybe. Now we've got into it's a must. Major platforms have risen and fallen like the empires of old. This is changing all the time. Whatever technology that you learn is going to be old news by tomorrow. That's just the world of technology. So we have to set ourselves up so that we are confident and solid on an ever-changing landscape that is the internet. So those are my two major pushbacks here. It's really more just additions to your original points. I think you're absolutely right that we need to be online. We need to be self-aware. We need to augment ourselves or hire out some of this stuff if we are not capable of doing that in-house. If you're at the point where you're asking, do I need to be hiring someone? Do I need to hire an agency? Then fall back to Mike's tips there. And it really does eventually become a yes or a no kind of answer. And then on the omni-channel stuff, try not to tackle too much, but make sure you are diversifying yourself enough to give yourself a nice solid foundation that's not going to just have something pull the rug out from underneath you if one company decides to change their mind on something. So hopefully that was a quick summary there.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent points there, Miles. And I'm glad you pulled back the reins a little bit on my omni-channel point. But yeah, let me flesh that out a little bit, because I agree with what you're saying. This is an and, not an or. But I do think that the end goal should be omni-channel, meaning every relevant channel that is out there. Now, as you said, in practice, that can't all happen at once, nor should it. And so let's flesh that out a little bit. But, I still believe, and this may seem contradictory, so that's why I'll try to explain it a little better than I did before. I still believe you want to take one channel at a time. You want to start with one channel, work your way out from there. However, like I said, the end goal of the roadmap should be that I'm on every single relative channel out there. And I do think that every single time something new and shiny comes along, you shouldn't necessarily jump ship from what you're doing and go over to there, but you should take 5-10 hours and explore what is happening on this new platform, channel, whatever we want to call it. I do think that, even if you are not the main marketing person in the company, that you at least need to have an understanding of it, right? When you sit down with the marketing people and they start talking about some new thing that's coming out, you need to at least have been like, yes, I understand what that is. Or you're at a distinct disadvantage. But that's where this is going. And then the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that current things that we are on right now will become obsolete. Right. And so we always have to be looking for that next thing. We talk about voice all the time, and right now everybody's focused on traditional SEO, but there's going to be a day where traditional SEO is, I won't say worthless, but worth a lot less than it is, and not everything, but because we want to be completely binary on this, but the majority of searches will be done by voice. I can't tell you when that day is going to come, but I know it's coming, and it's probably going to be faster than 90% of us think. And so, if I'm not taking the time to understand that now, at least on a cursory level, I'm going to miss opportunities, or I'm going to get left behind altogether. And so that's why I think, from a big picture perspective, we need to be thinking omnichannel. We need to be thinking what's coming next. From a practical standpoint, we need to be walking one step at a time and make sure that we're walking before we run. So hopefully that wasn't too contradictory, Miles, and I explained that a little better the second time around.
That was good. Yeah, I'm gonna add one point here, and then I think we can probably wrap the show up. And that is, you talked about the platforms that we are on right now becoming old and becoming obsolete. I think that we have to leave open the idea that we can be cycling through these things, and maybe our big player right now and the number one thing that we're putting our effort into might be dropped entirely within the next year or two. And that makes room for us picking up that next thing, that next platform, the next tool or technology, whatever is the growing thing. And I'm going to also just throw in one point that I think I make every time we do this show. And that is, no matter what you're doing, if you are writing your own blog, if you are hiring an agency, if you are trying out a new platform or considering dropping an old one, measure what you're doing. Find a way to measure the effectiveness of what's actually happening here. Don't just take it subjectively. What you think is going to be working might not actually be the best place for you. What you think is currently working for you, unless you're measuring this in some sort of very realistic way, then it might not be working as well as you think, or it could be totally outperforming your expectations. You have no way of knowing. So no matter what you're doing, if you're doing work internally, if you're farming stuff out, if you're doing a mix of these things, trying something new or reevaluating something old, please find a way to measure the outcome here. There's plenty of tools, metrics tools, analyzing or analytics tools. We have some internally here at Wildman Web Solutions. We will happily give to you if you need some help with that, or point you in the right direction if you're trying to measure something else. But try to make that kind of informed decision. This even happens internally. I kind of figured that on our social medias, we're primarily a B2B kind of company. We're working with people professionally. We're working with other companies. You'd think that our top performing social channel would be something like LinkedIn, when really people love our Instagram. I wouldn't have predicted that going in. And now I know that we need to give Instagram its due, and we need to be putting enough time and energy into that platform because it's outperforming the other ones for us internally. And we only know that because we started everything with this mindset of measuring everything, looking for a particular kind of outcomes there and seeing if we hit these kinds of benchmarks. And then we can decide how we're going to allocate our resources, our time, our money, and our sanity when we have all of these different tools and choices in front of us.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, Miles, and that ties in with the whole omni-channel and tasting new things point as well. Is that if we would have just assumed that we knew best, and LinkedIn was the only channel that we needed, and we poured all our eggs in that basket and never did Instagram, we would never have had that realization. And the market is the market is the market, and the market will always win. And so you always have to test it and take its feedback. Excellent point there. And I also loved your point that if I can summarize it as all the things that are old become new again. And like going back to the example of retail's not dead. I mean, that we're seeing that right now. There are companies that have never had a physical retail presence whatsoever that built billion-dollar companies on the back of Facebook ads, and then iOS 14 happened. They're sitting there going, whoa, what just happened? Our entire strategy of success is gone. What are we going to do? Right? Because they had all their eggs in that basket. So, I mean, great points. I think we could wrap it up on that.
Awesome. Well, speaking of our socials here, if you want to find us on social media, we are at Wildman Web on all the social medias out there. Apparently, I'm just plugging our Instagram here. So go to our Instagram and follow us there. It's some really good content we put out. And we do this live stream every week. So check back in here next week, Thursday at noon. And we'll be answering your questions again. If you have any questions on any of this, again, we'll be looking at the comments below after this, but you can also email us, askwildman@wildmanweb.com. But we will see you next week. Thanks, Mike, and thank you all for watching.